joining me tonight, I'm really pleased to introduce some excellent speakers. We have Dr. Andrew Meyerson, who's a striking junior A&E doctor, and Andrew has been on the picket line in London today. If you've got questions and comments, do send them through in the usual way, and we'll get through as many of those as you can. But Andrew, I'm really pleased that you could join us this evening. Thank you so much, and I'll hand over to you.
Well, it's great to be with you guys tonight. Thank you so much for including me. I've heard great things about your union, about your members, and about your actions so far. So, I wish you nothing but solidarity and strength moving forward. I'm Andrew. I'm an A&E junior doctor. I work in East London in a pretty busy A&E, and I am on strike right now. This is not an easy decision, but it's the necessary and right decision. Because 10 years ago, you guys had the best healthcare system on the planet, and it was ranked #1 globally, beat everybody else, including the United States, where I come from, and far exceeds the United States, where I come from. And you could see your GP in 48 hours, 48 hours. You could get a cancer referral in under 2 weeks. You could go to A&E and be seen in under 4 hours. And the waiting lists were far less than what they are right now. And if you look at what's happened in the last 10 years, we've seen 400 billion pounds pulled out of the NHS. We've seen a government that has no interest in planning for the future in terms of the number of doctors and nurses that we need. So we have 135,000 vacancies in the NHS right now, 165,000 in social care. They have closed countless A&E departments. We've lost 20,000 hospital beds. And so we're at a point year after year where we are screaming at the government, please do something, fix this. And I know that there are probably a lot of your members who, work in the background on a lot of this stuff, trying to execute this policy, and nothing but solidarity with you guys, because I know that from what I understand, you're limited in, you really can't say much about your opinions about the government, about their policies, but you have to just execute it. And so for anybody that's doing anything to help the NHS, thank you. But there are huge gaps in the intentions of huge gaps in what the government says and what they do. And every year we've been arguing with them year after year, trying to say that the winter crisis is getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and then the winter crisis extends into other seasons. And we now see, and the waiting lists before COVID were 5 million long. So the government loves to blame COVID for this, but waiting lists were terrible before that, and they've ballooned to 7.2 million now, the longest waiting list in NHS history. And we have the horrifying statistic that recently was 500 deaths every single week due to delays accessing NHS emergency care. That's somebody dying at home because they've been waiting too long. That's somebody because they're waiting too long for an ambulance. That could be an ambulance crew that is delayed, that picks up a patient, but they die en route. Could be dead on arrival in the back when they show up in our A&E departments, or somebody that collapses in our A&E departments from a 15-hour wait. And so we see 500 deaths every single week from this, and that is just horrific. This is 2023 in the 6th wealthiest country on the planet, and you guys have a great history of delivering healthcare in an excellent, refined way. And just to see what's happened to the system over the last 13 years is horrific to us, and the trauma that we see and we take home is awful. And so nobody wanted to go on strike. We wanted to avoid this for a very, very long time. We understand the delays this causes, that that people can't, it had appointments that they were waiting to see, procedures that they were waiting to, surgeries that they were waiting to have happen, and those are all delayed. But you need to understand that this is, we have a government that just does not care about your health. They really don't. They don't care that the NHS waiting lists are awful. They don't care that people are dying in record numbers, and they also don't care that staff are leaving in droves because it's getting too difficult to work in the NHS. And so when far too many of us are leaving, that means that it's going to be worse. We talk about pay restoration because it's appropriate for us. We've lost 30% of our pay in the last 15 years. But this is about a lot more than just pay. But if we don't get pay restoration, if we don't get a sizable increase in our salary, then it is going to, we're going to see GP appointment waiting times be a month away. We're going to see cancer waiting times go from, what it should be 2 weeks. Now it's 2 months to half a year. And then what that does, though, is that leads to, so they're going to see people flocking away from the NHS because it's just too difficult to work here. And then what happens to the system? Then we have a two-tier system. We get one system for the wealthy. They can access private healthcare, which is the whole intention of this. They wanted to privatize the system. They wanted to run it to the ground, so it pushed more people into private healthcare. And all those private healthcare companies, just take a wild guess who runs them, who they're friends with, who they take money from, and so it's a really terrible time to be working right now. But this is what the strike action from the nurses and from the BMA, and from you guys and from everybody else that's on strike. This is the only thing that gives us hope. Otherwise, I think that we wouldn't have the energy to keep going. And it's just, you can tell from my accent, I'm from the United States, where healthcare is delivered in a terrible, terrible way. And you have, 500,000 Americans declaring bankruptcy every year because of, terrible medical bills. You have, tens of millions of Americans without any health insurance at all. And that's what happens when you have a two-tier system. There will be people that will opt out just because of with health insurance. There will be people that opt out because of the costs, because it's too difficult. So, I think a lot of you guys understand how great your NHS is, and you join us in fighting for it and recognize it. It's just this government doesn't, and it's heartbreaking because I see such a a beautiful system run down by a government that just doesn't care about it. And so solidarity with you guys, with everybody that's done anything to help the NHS or help this country. I know a lot of you guys do a lot of this work in the background, and you're unsung heroes, and can't often speak out about certain things. But we just solidarity with you. We know how hard that is, and we experienced some similar things in the NHS. People have been too worried to speak out and raise their voices for a very, very long time. But I think we're seeing a sizable shift in that now, just because of the harm that's coming to patients, that we all feel a moral obligation to speak out and fight back. On Friday, the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, he wrote something in the Telegraph, and he said that junior doctors should check their conscience before we go on strike. Well, I've checked my conscience, and my conscience tells me that when we have a government that is content to allow hundreds of people, 500 people, to die every single week from preventable delays, and they're not doing anything, they don't consider it a crisis. They don't think that there's it's not, they're not treating it as if this is a crisis. And so my conscience tells me that in that situation, when our government is not doing anything for our patients, and they're coming to such harm, that we have a moral obligation to go on strike, to demonstrate to this government that we have to, that something is wrong and they need to fix, because they're just not listening. And so that's why we're here, defending our patients, defending our colleagues, and defending our NHS, because it's worth fighting for. And so, thank you so much for having me. And, I will be with you guys on Wednesday. And huge solidarity. The NHS supports you guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andrew. That's really, really good to hear. And we're really pleased you could join us tonight. Clearly, as you say, your union and ours will be taking action together.
Yeah, ONS, thank you.
Let's make it the biggest show of strength. That's fantastic. Thanks very much.